Let me know when we're ready. OK. So hello, everybody. This is the second meetup that Laravel Greece is hosting in Thessaloniki. The first one went great, so, so we're starting again. And this time, it's going to be a recurring event. The plan is to host one event around every quarter, more or less. It's going to alternate with Athens. So there's one in Athens, and then 1.5 months later, there is one in Thessaloniki, and so on and so forth. We're always looking for speakers. If you want to present something, you don't have to be experts. You don't have to be like, it doesn't have to be something extraordinary, just sharing something with a group, because this meetup, it's all about having an opportunity to connect with each other, to share ideas, to share opinions, experiences, and have this opportunity to network with each other. I don't know how many of you have been to meetups before or have ever been to a Laravel Greece meetup before. It's one of the oldest and biggest communities for Laravel in the world. Starting last year in 2025, it's also supported officially by Laravel Inc., the company behind Laravel. It's one of the official sort of meetups that are being sponsored by the company. And we also want to extend our thanks to Epignosis and to Native PHP, as well as Hack the Box. These are all our sponsors and help us make this a reality, help us get you pizzas and waters and host these events. So the schedule for today is to have 2 talks. One of them is going to be by me regarding filament, and then also one by our friend Dimitris, who will talk about prompt security. Right? Prompt security? Yeah. And the talks are going to each be around 20 to 30 minutes. There's going to be a small break between them, and then time for networking and pizza at the end. And I think that's everything I had to say as an introduction, and we can begin with the first talk. So I'm going to be sitting down because this is mostly a demo. This talk will be focusing on how we can create a quick prototype for such an app with filament. I will explain more about what filament is and how it works and everything. So who am I? My name is Greg. I'm your host for today and also the speaker for this talk. I've been writing code for about 15 years, with the past decade focused on web and Laravel. And for the past few years, I've been building SaaS applications with filament for different clients around the world. And that's why I want to share this experience with you today. So this talk is primarily focused on filament. So it's generally intended for Laravel developers, people already experienced with Laravel. We won't be spending any time in the demo going over how Laravel is configured and set up and how it works. We're going to be focusing on filament. It's going to be a high-level showcase. There is not enough time to show you everything about filament, and it's intended to just give you an idea of how it would work and how you can set something up and prototype it. And it's going to be demo-focused. I promise I only have like a couple more slides. Everything else is going to be code, and you're going to see it in action. And the general idea behind this is to give you a quick way to market validation. And what that means is that whenever we start a new project, a new SaaS project, somebody has an idea. It might be a client coming to you. It might be a developer having an idea. It might be a group of developers getting together and wanting to start something, start a startup, basically. And to start with your idea and take your idea into a project, into a business, grow it into a business, you need to start with an MVP. An MVP is the minimum viable product, which is basically the version of your idea, of your dream, of your vision that has the least amount of features needed to start working and to start attracting customers and gaining traction in the market. Now, the problem is that these ideas, to get an idea from the design phase and the talking phase into an actual working application, usually you need a lot of boilerplate. You need to set up a new project, you need to gather your dependencies, you need to set up the front end, the back end, all of that, and have everything working before you can actually start writing your business logic and writing your application code to build out your features. And as most SaaS projects, I would even go as far as to say the vast majority of SaaS projects can be actually simplified into a CRUD application, like having base models that you create, read, update, delete. It might be invoices, it might be posts, categories, what have you. Most applications boil down to these operations that we all know and work with. Even something like Facebook, that has a ton of features, of course, at the very core of it, it's basically a CRUD application in the sense of you create a post, you can edit it, you can update it, you can delete it, you can share it with others, you can view posts from others. It might be a page sharing the post, a business, and an advertisement or whatever, but at its very core, you're basically creating records and listing records. That's it. And because most applications share those features, you end up having to do the same work again and again to set up a project. Now, you would say, Greg, I've done this 20 times. I know how to do it. I created my own boilerplate, my own template, and I just reuse it every time. That's perfect. You can do that. But what tends to happen is in a business outside of hobby development, let's say, you have other priorities. You have to develop existing projects. You have to answer support tickets. You have to cater to existing customers, and so on and so forth. And very often, you don't have the time to actively maintain your template, your boilerplate. So whenever the time comes to start a new idea, you also need to pause and update your dependencies, update your boilerplate. Maybe there is a major Laravel release. Maybe they change the framework structure. Maybe something happened, and you need to migrate and update, and so on and so forth. And that causes slowdowns. And the biggest problem with these ideas is that sometimes we have the billion-dollar idea, but then as we start building and we have to stop and go update dependencies and stop and go do this, we end up losing traction, losing focus, and we end up abandoning the idea. That's why developers famously have a whole drawer full of side projects that never launched. So this is where Filament comes in. And how can Filament help with that? So Filament is, first of all, a 3D printing material. I don't know if anybody does 3D printing. But in the context of Laravel, Filament is a server-driven UI framework, as they describe it themselves. And what that means, basically, is that you drive your UI through backend files. You're not writing front-end code. You are not writing anything. You focus on your controllers or things like controllers, I will show you in a second, where you define what your business logic is, and then Filament does all the bulk work of getting that into a presentation, into a UI for the user to use. It's an open source project. Right now, it has, I think, over 1,200 contributors on GitHub. It's a very, very active project. It has sponsorships for major players in the Laravel ecosystem. And it also uses a plugin setup where community members can create plugins that you can install and use on your project for more obscure features that maybe Filament doesn't support. And also, you can sell your plugins. So you can create plugins for Filament and sell them and have that as an additional source of revenue. In contrast to your internal boilerplate, this is a battle-tested UI. It's used by thousands of projects out there. Many people actively contribute. They fix bugs. They fix security vulnerabilities. Everything is always updated. And you end up needing a fraction of the time to build an MVP. There are situations where you would need to exceed what Filament can do. But in the context of an MVP, of needing to go to market and seeing if your idea actually has a market and can have that validation and can have paying customers and is actually worth your time building something bigger and something major and so on and so forth, this is, in my opinion, one of the quickest ways to get that out of the door. And let's see how that can happen in action. Now, I created a Laravel project. Actually, I will show you this first. It's Laravel new, nothing fancy, nothing custom, nothing on top of that, just a simple Laravel project. And I also spent a tiny bit of time to set up my models. We're going to be building the very, very low-level MVP of a vacation rentals manager, like if you have apartments in Thessaloniki and you want to rent them out, and you want to have an application to manage that. So the end user in this instance is the person who owns the apartments and wants to manage the reservations. Now, the full-featured version of this idea, it might have a front end for the people who book the rooms. It might have integrations with Google Ads and so on and so forth. In our context, the MVP, to get paying customers in the door, we just need to give them a way to add their data and manage it. So that's what we're going to be focusing on today. We're going to create a property model with a name and an address, and a booking model that has the name of the guest, and then a start date and end date for the booking. And also, it's going to be linked, it's going to have a one-to-many relationship with the property. So what I did so far is that I built the two models, a booking and a property model, right here. I'm not very used to working with this font size, so I apologize if I need to go up and down a bit. So it's a booking and a property model. And I also created the migrations for those. I'm not going to bore you with migrations. And a couple of factories and seeders, so have some test data to show on the UI. All of this is fairly standard Laravel stuff. If you've ever worked with Laravel before, all of this should be familiar, and it's pretty straightforward. Now, we're going to add filament into our project, because right now we have all that data, but we have no way to see it, no way to access it, no way to use it. I do have a cheat sheet here for some commands. Please don't look ahead. And I'm going here in my terminal, basically bring in the filament dependency. It's going to quickly install it. And as soon as that's ready, I'm going to use a command to initialize filament, basically. To say, are you going to go away? Yeah, OK. So filament works with something called panels. They call the different UIs panels. And you can have on your project multiple panels. You might have a panel for the end users to use the application. And you can also have an admin panel for you to manage your users and their subscriptions and so on and so forth. And they can all live together in your app, but being accessed by different users. Right now, we're going to create a new panel. We're going to call it not booking, because there is already a site called booking, so we're going to call it Booker. And we're not going to start the project right now. OK, and we need one more step to create a user for us to be able to log in. By default and by design, Filament doesn't have a registration page, because in many business-to-business scenarios, you would be onboarding clients yourself. So there is no built-in registration page, but it's as simple as adding a Laravel registration page to your system, because the user model is the same user model that Laravel uses in general. Let's call our user Thessaloniki meetup. And let's do Thessaloniki at laravel.gr and password. All right. And now, if we go back to our project, this stays the same. I'm going to refresh. Nothing changed. There is no public login and register. But if we go under Booker, I called it, I think. Yeah. Now we're getting the Filament login page. I'm going to use this account that I just created. And password. Oop, what did I do? My hands are cold, and they're not typing properly. Did I mistype it in the terminal? Yeah, I did, most likely. Oops. Let's very quickly reset everything. Yep. OK. And let's restart the user. Thessaloniki. Password. OK, let's try that again. Yeah. The page is expired because I reset the database. There we go. OK, sorry about that. Yeah, I know, my password is password, so it's complaining. OK, so all I did so far was install Filament. and I already have an admin dashboard. I have my users. I have dark mode if I want to. Actually, I think for this demo, I will keep it. No, you cannot really see it. OK, let's keep it light mode. So I already have a base set of features that I can use, and without me having to do any of the work. Now, you will say, any Laravel starter project, the official starter projects, third-party starter projects, they do all of that almost the same way. No big deal. Nothing changed. And I agree. This is just the boilerplate. So let's now create a resource. So what Filament calls resources is basically a link between your model and the UI. We're going to create a Filament resource for property. It's one of our models. The title attribute, what we're going to show as a title at the top of the navigation bar or whenever we need to, it's going to be the name of the property. We're not going to use a read-only view page. We'll only have create, edit, and list. And now this is asking us if we want to generate fields for the resource from the model. But in my experience, this rarely works really well. So I always skip it. And now, if we go into our application, we now have a Filament folder that has a properties resource. And inside here, we have the pages, the create, edit, and list page. We're not going to touch those pages at all at this point. We have a schema for the form that's going to be used for create and edit. And we have the table that will be used to list the records. Let's go into the form, and let's create a text input for the name column, and also create a text input for the address column. And let's also go into the property table. And let's say that we want to show in the columns of the table, we want to show a text column for name and a text column for address. My ID is helping me out here because I'm writing those things. Now, what did I do? I ran a command, created the resource. I added 2 lines of code for the form and 2 lines of code for the table. Nothing else. Let's go back here and refresh. Now we have a new entry in our navigation. There is a ton of customization. I will get into that near the end. You can have the navigation be on the top, be on the side, be nested, be whatever you want. I'm just going over the basics now. If I go into properties, I immediately have a table. I have pagination. I have a way to show more records if I want to. If I click any of the records, the names, of course, are generated by Faker, so they're gibberish, but that's not the point. I have the entry. I have a form with the fields I specified. I can create a new one, call it meetup test, and the address is in OK-thes. Create it. I get a notification from 1Password, but also those notifications when I create something. When I delete something, I get confirmation modals. I confirm. Again, I get toast notifications for what I did. All of that, and all I did was specify my business logic. What do I need? I need a name and an address, nothing else. Filament does everything for me. Let's also do the other resource, which is going to be the booking. OK, again, it's going to be the name, no, and no. I get another folder next to it. This one is a tiny bit more complex. We're going to have a text input for the name. Yes, thank you. We're going to have a select box for the property. The property ID Greg. OK. We're going to have a date picker for the start date. Yeah. OK. And then a date picker for the end date. OK. Slightly more complex fields, but still pretty basic in this context. And then in the table for now, we'll just add the name, and we will come back to this because I want to focus on the form for now. But let's say we have the name. Now, if I refresh, I get a new entry. You can also reorder those, change the icons. You can do whatever you want. And inside the bootings here, I have the bootings, the people who are booting the rooms. I'm sorry. And if I go into any one of those, I get the name, the property, and the dates. Now, there are a couple of things here. First of all, the property ID right now is empty. doesn't load properly because we didn't hook it up to anything. And this sometimes does take a while. You need to fetch the models from the database, you need to plug the ID and name, you need to put them in the dropdown, and so on and so forth. Here, instead of doing all of that, what we're going to do is we're going to chain a method here, call it relationship. And we're going to say we want the property relationship, and we want to show the name. So let me start a little bit. Okay. Actually, I'm going to hide the sidebar to make this a bit easier to work with. Now, one prerequisite for this is that our model needs to have a property relationship. If we go into the booking model, we have defined a property relationship. So we need the Laravel base. Not visible? The browser? OK, yeah, actually, let's do it now. How about now? Better? OK. So we need to have the Laravel definition, the eloquent definition of a relationship. Now that we have that, we say here in the select box that we have a relationship with property. Now, if I go back here and refresh, immediately we have all our properties here listed. It's taking the IDs, taking the names, doing all the work for us, and immediately it loaded the correct property because this is seeded data that has a property linked. But you will say, hey, Greg, this is not looking nice. And normally you would have to peruse a front-end developer to make them make it look nicer. Here, instead of doing all that, we're just going to say that it's searchable, and we're also going to ask it to preload the data for us to make things a bit snappier. So if I go back here and I refresh, instead of the native dropdown, I now get this, where I can search. There is a debounce that you can set, and I can find what I want, change it, save it, and be happy about it. And in the same manner, right here, this date picker is using the native Chrome and macOS date picker right now. But if I want something nicer and easier to use, I can just tell the date picker to stop using the native one. I will do it only on one of them so you can see it side by side. If I refresh, I get a nicer looking date picker compared to this. And I also get a more streamlined view, basically, on my data. One extra thing to just showcase more configuration options that Filament gives you is that here, if I select a date, this stays open until I click out of it. But I can very easily chain another method and say close on date selection. And now, as soon as I change something, it immediately closes out, which usually helps from a UI perspective. Now, there is obviously a ton more options. There is a ton more things that you can do. I'm just scratching the surface here. But I want to show you how easy it is to define your business logic without having to care about creating the UI, maintaining the UI, doing all those things. Now, one more thing I want to show you is that when I'm browsing the app as a user now, as the property owner, it's very useful to me to go into a property and to be able to see immediately all the bookings that are related to this property. So how are we going to do this? We're going to go and create what Filament calls a relation manager. I'm going to go into my cheat sheet so that I can quickly get the command, and I will explain what this does. So basically, we're going to create a relation manager for the property resource for the bookings relationship with the name of the booking. We're going to link it to the existing resource, which is going to be bookings. OK? And now, one new folder has been created under properties. You can see my mouse, right? It's a bit small, but it's visible, called Booking Relations Manager. And now, in here, we have exactly what we asked for, the bookings for the booking resource. Now, if I go into the property resource now, down at the relations function that's pre-generated for me, and I say that I now want to use the bookings relation manager class, all right? And I go back into my code, I refresh. Here are all the bookings for that apartment. As easy as that. Now, this UI also gives us a way to create a new booking. But instead of navigating away, we can use Filament's modals. It has a very strong modal. There we go. Filament has very strong models in the sense that they're very robust, and you can use even nested models. You can have models upon models. There is a UX issue there. I mean, you shouldn't be stacking models ad infinitum, but it's things that you can do, and it's things that are already available as soon as you install Filament. I also want to consult my cheat sheet so I can fix the connection with the existing property. And what I'm doing here is I want, whenever I try to create a new booking here, I want it to basically pre-select the property for me. The current property, I mean, because I'm creating a booking for this property. And I can very quickly add Greg, I guess. I can very quickly add a new booking for this list. Now, I just created something and I cannot see it, which is a bummer. If I go to the very end, here it is. But I want this to be nicer. So I can come back into the bookings table, which is what I'm seeing here. So the bookings table here and the bookings table used by the, was it this one? I think it was this one. Yeah. These two bookings tables are the same. They are the same by default, but if for whatever reason you want to have different views, you can also do that, and you can change the way its view works. Here, what I want to say is that I want to also add a text column, which is going to be the created at, so that I can have a date and have it be sortable. So now, if I go back here, I can see when the listing was made. And if I actually sort by latest, I can also see the latest booking that I just created. You can also set this as default. You can add filters to the table. You can add searching to the table. You can do whatever you want. All of these are native Filament features that you can use and utilize in your projects. Now, one last thing I want to show you today is the analytics part of it. So Filament has already a very strong integration with Charts.js or Chart.js. I don't know if there is an S there. But basically, you can create widgets for your dashboard or for other pages, depending on what you're trying to do. And you can showcase data in a very quick way. Let's do that for the bookings. I will consult my cheat sheet again for the exact command. And at the end, I will also show you the documentation, which is fairly straightforward and easy to use. So I'm going to create a new widget, which is going to be called bookings chart. And it's going to be a chart. That's why I'm passing that flag. It's going to be inside the panel. It's not going to be inside the resource. And it's going to be a line chart. We're going to go and find our widget, which is here. And I am also going to speed things up a little bit, so I don't have you go through all this with me. But the general idea is that I am using, actually, let's take the entire get data here, and I will walk you through it. So what I'm doing here is that I'm using a third-party library to speed things up. It's not something that you cannot do with native Eloquent. You can normally just do native Eloquent. You can query your data. You can create date ranges, and you can pull the data that you need and display it in a specific format. Here I'm using a library called Trend. It's from FlowFrame. And what it does, it's basically it gives you trends for analytics. And you can say that I want this model between these dates and show me the per day count. And then I'm telling Filament that I want these values to be displayed in our line chart. Now, obviously, I sped this up a bit. You would need to know what you're trying to build, and you might need to go in and create those things and the queries that you need and the date ranges that you need. But as soon as you have that, and with this minimal setup, it's like 20 lines of code. If I go back to my dashboard and refresh, I now see how I'm doing with bookings this month. I can see in February, I had these bookings per day with details, with data. And of course, this can extrapolate to different charts, different options, filters, and so on and so forth. Now, the final thing for now is styling. Because you will say, Greg, this looks dope, but if we all 30 of us use Filament now, we're going to have the exact same app again and again and again and again and again. Obviously, that's not the case. Filament gives you a ton of options for customization. Today, we're going to look at a couple of very, very minor ones as a showcase. But basically, here, when you install Filament, when you create a panel, it gives you a panel provider, which is basically the bootstrap of the provider for your application. Here, there is a colors definition. You can set all the different colors of an app, like primary, success, danger, warning, and so on and so forth. We're only going to work with primary right now, and I'm going to set it to sky. It's using the colors that Tailwind does. It's using Tailwind CSS behind the scenes. So whatever colors Tailwind defines, you can use here immediately, and it will be recognized as an enum, and it will be used in your site. And immediately, everything is blue. Everything in the sense of the accents on the UI. And let's also add a logo, a brand logo, which is going to be an asset from my folder, which is Laravel Greece. Oop, brand logo, not log. OK. And if I go back here and refresh, on the top left, you can see immediately our logo. Let's make it a bit bigger. Brand logo hide. Turin. I think that should be enough. No? Yeah, OK. So with a couple of chained methods in the provider, I immediately have a very basic customization. Obviously, there are a lot more options. And because this is Tailwind, you can also just go nuts. There is a way to create your custom theme. You can customize everything, the paddings, the margins, the locations, everything. Filament has a lot of existing customization options. It also uses hooks, so you can hook into specific processes and interject and inject your own data with your own logic and your own styling and whatever you may need. And there is also the option, because Filament at its core is a tall stack application. Tailwind, Alpine, Laravel, Livewire. If you know how to work with Livewire, you know how to work with Tailwind, you can go in and change whatever you need to take it into your specific use case. So what we saw today was how to very quickly, in 20 minutes or so, create a very, very basic app. Of course, this is not something that is production ready. You have more things to do, more features. You need to make it more meaningful for your end user. But the general idea is that with very, very minimal effort and very, very minimal code, you immediately have a working application where your users can go in, they can edit data, they can view data, they can do all those basic operations very, very quickly with minimal effort from your side. You can learn more on their website. There is also a demo app that has a lot of different examples of the widgets and the charts and the pies and the resources and the tables and the if lists, all the different features that it offers. And also the documentation is very strong, and it has a lot of examples for a lot of obscure things and advanced use cases. And lastly, on their GitHub and their Discord, they are very active. The community is very active. You can get help. You can get your issues fixed and whatever you may want to do. That's what I had to show for you today. You can find me and contact me there if you want. There, I also have a printed version of this QR code, and we can chat in the break and in the end. Are there any questions relating to Filament, relating to? Yeah?
Do those files, the front-end files, are they publishable? So
Yes.
you can edit them?
Yes. Yes, and let me very, very briefly show that. So as soon as you install, you get CSS files, fonts that are used, and JavaScript that is used. I realize now you maybe were asking for the specific resources that you create.
Yes, the UI, the tables UI.
Those specific resources are not by default published. You can publish and change them and extend them, and then you can say that my resource, I wanted to use this file instead of the native file. Yeah. Anybody else? Yeah.
Why should someone use Filament compared to something similar like Laravel Nova, for example?
That's a great question. So Filament, I think, originally was created as sort of a competitor to Laravel Nova. It was initially destined to be an admin panel used solely by developers to manage their SaaS applications, as Nova is. But because it is open source, as opposed to Nova, and community-driven, it very quickly grew to also support end-user SaaS applications, basically, like what we were building right now. And it gives you the opportunity and the option to fully customize what you're doing. Nova is a great app. It's a paid app compared to Filament that is free. But it does have customization, but relatively limited. There is a set things that you can customize. There's a few things that you can do to sort of circumvent that, but beyond that, it's a very strict, a very rigid ecosystem. Filament, on the other hand, is completely open. It's just Livewire. You can go in, you can do whatever you want to every page. You can customize it however you want. The only purpose that it has is to help you build things faster. It's not something that will constrict you in any way. Yep?
Do they have something like themes?
Yeah. That's a great question. So the same way they have plugins, there are also themes. Personally, to be honest, I haven't gone into it too much to give you specific examples, but I know there are both free and paid themes that you can use, which is basically, in most cases, a predefined CSS file or some assets that you can use to replace the native ones. Anybody else? All right. OK.
About performance.
Yeah, performance. Yeah. So I don't know if any of you are frequenting the Laravel subreddit, where Filament is frequent a topic. And there are usually people who, I think also in our Slack channel, there was at one point a conversation about performance in Filament. There is, in general, not specifically with Filament, but with Livewire at scale, a concern that the way Livewire works, where it's querying the backend for new data all the time, that can be an issue with performance. In my personal experience building apps, you need to grow considerably to hit a performance limit. I'm not saying there is no performance limit, but I'm saying there is a considerable ceiling before you start hitting performance issues. There are ways to work on those issues, and Filament itself, with every new version, is doing things to help performance and increase performance. But the idea of this entire talk today is that Filament can be used to get something out the door quickly, get market validation, get paying customers, have this validation that your idea actually has traction and can become something. And when your idea scales to thousands of users and thousands of servers and it needs something that can be even faster, then you can start transitioning and migrating into a more performance solution. And I think at that point, you might even go into Octane. You might even go into a split of microservices. It's a whole different conversation. But I think premature optimization, like thinking, oh, my app will eventually have thousands of users, so I need to build it scalable today, sometimes kills this initial MVP phase because you overcomplicate the project without even having your first paying customer. Yeah?
Can you adjust the queries that are loaded, like relationships?
Absolutely. Yeah. For every page that you have, natively, Filament offers it for, I think, every page, or like 90% of the pages. You can add a function to the page, and you can customize the query. You can tell it that, hey, when you're loading data here, use this query instead of what you were going to use. And even in the cases where you cannot customize the native experience, you can replace the page with a custom page, basically, which is a clone of what you're doing, and fully customize the experience to whatever you need. I know in our Slack channel, there was a discussion about this, and somebody was saying, I have, I think they were showing orders in a Filament table, and because the shop that was using the app wanted to see every order, like thousands of records in one page, and the way Livewire loads those rows, it can be very heavy if you go into thousands of rows in the same page. I think that person actually replaced that table with a React table. Because it's an open source project, you can do whatever you want. You can plug in a small island of what you want to do and so the data the way that you want. I think we're out of time. I will be available at the break and also at the end if you want to chat more. And thank you. Right, we're going to take a short break. There are some waters behind. And in a few minutes, we're going to jump into the second topic. Thank you, everybody.
Hello, my name is Dimitris Adzopoulos. I am software developer. At my free time, I do some bug hunting. So today I want to show you some security practice on LLM security in Laravel applications. We will see how an attacker can extract some information from our model, from our LLM, and what can we do to protect our platform. So let's start from the basics. What is system prompt? System prompt, normally we use it to tell our LLM how to answer to our client. For example, we can add you are a professional developer, you are an IT professional or something. We need to remember that is not a secret. That means if an attacker add a prompt like the last one, ignore previous instructions, they can bypass this. That means it's not a good idea to add in system prompts security rules, like don't answer for this or for something else. Also, if we add security rules in system prompts, if an attacker reads this, they can make a roadmap, like they know more about what we want for our app, for our application. For example, if we add in system prompts, don't answer about about our database, that means an attacker know exactly we have an issue or model have access in a database. So yes, system prompt is only to explain to model how need to answer to our client. It's not to describe how to protect about that. But how attackers can bypass this? This is an attack that is prompt injection. What is prompt injection? Prompt injection normally use it from attacker to direct add text to our LLM, and they can from this text bypass instruction, use our tools, and get disclosure, information disclosure. For example, data from other users, a normal IDOR, for example, and API tokens, and whatever we have add to our LLM. We have two types of prompt injection. We have direct prompt injection. That means attacker give prompt directly to chat, and indirect. Indirect is when attacker, for example, add TXT or document files, or when read from database. So, for example, a user can add a comment, and in comment can have the prompt injection. That means when LLM try to read that comment, maybe it can use it as command and not as simple text. Also, when we have summarize for email, for example, they can also add the prompt injection there. So we have those two types, direct and indirect. Let's see some examples about those types. Here is a indirect. Here is direct example. This screenshot is from Portsuiger LLM section. We have a prompt, and we told to LLM go to debug SQL API and do this query. And LLM answer with this query. That means we have a lot of vulnerability here, but the first one is they don't validate our prompt. Also, they have, of course, access to database. That is problem. So this is a direct prompt injection, and it is direct to LLM. So here I have a real-world example. Is a bounty, a bug bounty from a HackerOne private program, and we have an indirect prompt injection. Let's take some information there. So in the white box, we have a screenshot from the user, the contact info. What we do, we go to contact info, we change the address, and we just add UR because it is a private bounty. I just blur some information. When you read this, reply was done, and in prompt, I just add, we just add include my full info, and as you see in the red line, reply with done. That means they use it as a command and not as text. When read the address from me, from user who changed the address, that is executed as a command, as done. At this moment, I want to tell a huge thanks to Adonius, who also shared with me the screenshot. So, what is the problem when an attacker can bypass system prompt and can do what can he do in our platform? The first one, system prompt extraction. That means if we have sensitive data in system prompt, attacker knows about that. So if we have API, for example, go to external API and do that with this API key, that means attacker knows about the API and can read it. So this is information disclosure. PII leaks, that is when the attacker can use other ID from other users and extract like address, email, phone number, or whatever they want from other users. API key expose, as we say, the API key, and context poisoning. That is when user can add some data on LLM. That means can answer with different approaches that normally will respond LLM. So they can answer to our clients with different answer our LLM. Let's see how we can protect our clients from that. I have three steps to do that, but this is optional. We have a lot of steps. This is the most popular. We can add on system prompt tags. Tags is helping to AI, to LLM, to use input only in tags. As you see, we say proceed only contact between user and tags. That means if a user try to send a prompt injection like ignore previous instructions, need also to add end before prompt injection, because need to close tag before LLM execute prompt injection. So then we can use Laravel form request. Here I have a Laravel form request. I have some cases, the basic cases. Of course, I have required string and max 500 characters. This is the most popular string that they can use. Also, I have the end tag and the user tag. That means attacker can't use end. And why is important to have tags? Because most tools use those attacks, those prompts. That means tool will false positive find it as non-vulnerability. So we can, from massive attacks, we can exclude our app. So yeah, in that case, we can use a classic form Laravel request, and we can just respond when we find one of those prompt injections about invalid input detected. So when we have feature with LLM, it is common to use also validate at response with, for example, with Olama or with other LLM. We can validate response with LLM like this example. We have a local host Olama, and we just ask if this response is in topic. If it's not, we can answer with if this is not in shipping and orders, for example, for this example. Normally, we don't use same model because we don't want to use and to have so much prompts at provider. And normally we use Olama or something else from models. But yeah, normally we use validation on request, also on response from the Laravel, from LLM, sorry. So we have here a race condition attack. Race condition attack is, let's imagine we have a platform and we have 10 prompts per user per day. So a user can only use 10 prompts from our platform. If user send parallel requests, like 20 requests at the same time, that means before answer LLM can use more than requests we have added as limit. So in that case, we can use cache lock. We can use cache lock, and when the LLM doesn't have response yet, we can add a basic message about wait to finish, because we have to add to exceed the limit, if exceed the limit. So race condition is a very common attack on LLMs, and they use a lot of prompts. That means we have more prompts and more prompts on our provider when we have app behind this. So let's summarize some of that. Prompt is like request input. We can't never trust if a user sent a prompt in our app. We have to validate response, and also it's a good practice to add tags because it's not a common security practice to do, so we can avoid massive scans. So in Laravel, we have a lot of tools to do. We can use middleware from request out to validation. We can use a lot to avoid prompt injections. We can use that. System are not public. System prompt are not public. That is very important because needs to always keep system prompt without sensitive data. It's very important to keep system prompt with data only about what AI needs to respond. Never add the personal data or something on there. Privilege. Of course, as we see, AI no need to have access on SQL or on external API. We do with our services, microservices or something, and we give it as data. No need to access directly to other services, to MySQL or something other, as we see on previous slides. And yeah, remember when we logging data from there, it's very important to logging only suspicious prompt, because we have users can have a lot of information about address or something. So we need only to logging suspicious, and when we be sure it's a prompt injection. Yeah, about that. And yeah, that's it. Thank you a lot. If you have any question, feel free.
Those principles apply to any AI app, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there are Laravel examples, but the principles about the tags and about
Yeah.
anything that receives prompts, basically.
Yeah, when you implement your build, you add it to your system prompt.
And is it a good idea to change the tags? You had here, like, I think start and end, but since these are common and an attacker might know to put an end tag.
Oh, no need. You can add any ad you want. Just I add it because it just looks cool to me. As example, yeah, exactly.
But all the models pay attention to these tags. They know about the tags.
It's not required to add those tags. Model just follow that instruction when you add it on system prompt. I chose to add it at system prompt because normally when an attacker try to attack us, they try to the common prompt injections, and they have to start his prompt injection with end. So normally prompt injections will not work.
Anyone else?
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
All right, so this concludes our talks part. Thank you everybody for coming. One more time, thanks to Dimitris and to our sponsors, Laravel, Businesses, Native PHP, and Hack the Box. Thank you also to the space, OK Thes. They've been kind enough to let us host our meetup here today. I want to also remind you that we're always looking for speakers, both for Thessaloniki and for Athens. If you have an idea, if you have anything you want to discuss, or maybe a notion of an idea you want to discuss with us, how that could turn into a talk, you can find us in Slack, you can find us on our Laravel emails. We'll also share those right after this talk. There's pizza behind you, and there's also beers behind you, getting set up right now. Mingle, network, this is what this is all about. And this space will close around 9 p.m. We will go someplace nearby for some more drinks. So if anybody wants to come along, you're welcome to do so. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for your coming today.